What is up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Mets'd podcast, episode number 171, talking about spring training, talking about the World Baseball Classic with your hosts, me, Mark Luino, Draftneck Mark, James Shiano. We're going to talk about everything that's been going on. If you guys have not yet followed us on all our social media, make sure you do at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You'll be able to follow us there. If you're looking for the YouTube video, go to the Mets YouTube channel. You'll be able to watch the video version there. And if you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. James, actually, I did see you recently. We had a friend's birthday, but we haven't done a formal episode on Zoom in a little bit. How you doing?
I'm doing well, still kind of feel like we're playing the catch up from being down in the PSL now almost
Yeah.
2 full weeks ago. And then we did a bit of a crazy weekend. We did board game night on Friday, which was super fun, and then we had our friend's birthday on Saturday. So yeah, seeing each other a lot, but not
No,
talking
yeah,
about
we've
the
been
Mets as much.
very not Mets conversational with each other, which is perfect for you guys because now you get to hear about it because there is a lot to talk about. And I feel like the first thing I want to talk about, at least, is the young guys. Ronny Mauricio, Brett Baty, Mark Vientos. They've been playing unbelievably well in spring training, doing a lot of things that are, super encouraging, super exciting to see for their young development, and hopefully to maybe make an impact for this team at some point this year.
Definitely. That trio that you mentioned have been just the entire story of Mets camp, entire story. Like they're one of the biggest stories even like nationally right now, going through all spring training. The fact that these three prospects are here together, spent a lot of time in the minors together, more so Baty and Vientos than Mauricio, but everyone has spent time in certain teams together. And all three of them are doing things that are really unique and like special to their own growth as players. And just start with, I feel like the guy who's been the most surprising just because of where he came in versus where he is now is Ronny Mauricio with three just mammoth tanks so far, three big bombs. He's rocking 380, 430, 1100 slash line, which is obscene. Of course, only 14 plate appearances, but he just looks like he like kind of just belongs on the
He
field.
looks really, really confident. I mean, we saw him play in Brooklyn when we interviewed him back before we were with the Mets. Massive human being. He looks like he got even bigger, looks like he got even stronger. He's playing shortstop. He's also talked about maybe playing even a little bit of third base, that he's willing to move positions, which is actually something a little bit different than when we spoke to him in Brooklyn. We're like, what position do you play? He was like, I'm a shortstop. Spoke to, or we didn't speak to him now, but he's been speaking to the reporters in the media, and he's talking about he's looking to move positions if that means he's going to be able to play. And if he keeps swinging like this, I mean, you're going to have to find a spot for this bat because they're not just home runs. They're not wall scrapers. They're not Yankee Stadium home runs. He's hitting them 450 feet, and they're making a different noise off the bat. I've been super excited about this because ever since we saw Ronny Mauricio take BP that one time, I've been in. I'm a huge guy of like, oh, I see you hit BP. You hit the ball differently. He's a part of that group. And I'm really glad that he seems to be taking this step forward. Maybe the Dominican Winter League really helped him. He won the MVP out there, right, with the Tigres de Licey. He's
Yeah,
just his
a championship.
development has looked really good for a guy who I think outside of maybe the Mets organization, a lot of people have lost track of because he's not really sticking on MLB Pipeline or Baseball America or any of those top 100 prospects lists. But he's still 21 years old, and to be able to do this, 22, okay, 22, to be able to do this. I mean, I think it's opening eyes again back to the talent of Ronny Mauricio.
I think he kind of just became like like a casualty of like the prospect system because Ronnie was like so notable when he was like 17, just because he was 6'4" and you could like see the power developing. So that's what got him into like those top 30s, top 20s and lists like in 2019, 2020 times. And then he just kind of developed normally, like didn't make that massive jump, didn't have like that crazy run low A where like, all right, this guy's now a top 5 prospect. So he kind of got washed totally away because he didn't get better, obviously. But now he's just like had his time develop. He's still been young for every level he's played at, and he's clearly made actual improvements. I want to shout out someone I'm good, like friendly with, Chris Clegg on Twitter, does incredible prospect work. He has been going through like pitch by pitch data for a lot of the prospects at spring training. And the most important thing for Ronny Mauricio forever, we've talked about it at length on this
Yeah.
podcast, is plate discipline. Being able to be patient. Well, it's either kind of the combination when you get to this point of a player. And you look at like guys like Tim Anderson, who you just become so actively aggressive, like you have such a command of the strike zone that you can hit everything and the hit tool overrides and it wins. That's happening with Ahmed Rosario now, former Met who's out in Cleveland. That happens with who's another guy who just hits everything like that.
Hits everything like that. And
Like guys with like guys with like the 15% K rate and the 5% walk rate,
yeah,
like those kinds of guys. You know what I mean?
I,
Because the other option from there is like you get that walk rate up, but those are both two avenues forward. And 14 plate appearances this spring, Ronnie's got only one walk and one strikeout.
yes.
We saw that walk. I freaked out for that walk. I lost my mind. But 14 plate appearances, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. And again, shout out Chris Clay. He's been tracking pitch by pitch. His chase rate and his whiff rate have also both gone down from where he sat last year in Double A. I think they say I forget the numbers now, but I don't want to say it. But he said they both gone down noticeably. And you can check out Chris's Substack and get more information on that. But that, like, the bombs are great, but we kind of knew the power was there. Those facts about his plate discipline change the expectations of Ryan Mauricio and actually make me think he can contribute to major league level this
100%.
season.
Like I don't know where it's going to be. I don't know how he's going to do it. And honestly, there's a very good chance he might not because he still is 22 years old and there's a logjam right now of guys that play similar-ish positions in front of him. But I mean, if you're talking about like technically a backup shortstop, there isn't really that guy right now for the Mets.
And just the fact that we've been saying, what does this team need? They could really use, another power bat. Okay. Well, here's a guy who can actually play a premium position and is a power bat. Like, that's kind of a unicorn for this Mets roster. And it's definitely not going to happen for opening day. So people are talking about that. There's 0.0% chance of that. He just is going to put himself in position, though, in an organization right now that does lack shortstop depth, like you just said, to give himself a shot to be in the mix at some point, possibly, which is way more than I would have said about him 3 weeks ago.
100%, 100%. I think he's changed a lot of people's opinions. And I think, talking about maybe making the opening day roster or being someone who can make an impact immediately at the start of the season, Brett Baty, who is also tearing the cover off the ball. 8 for 17. It doesn't feel like 8 for 17. It feels like he's like 10 for 11. Like it feels like he doesn't get out when he gets to the plate in spring training right now. He's got a home run. He's got a double. He's been taking the ball opposite field, struck out 4 times, 1 walk as well. But he's just, I mean, we've seen him hit now for a little bit longer than, some of these other prospects. He's super comfortable at the plate. He seems to have an idea of what the strike zone looks like, and he hits the ball to all fields with power. Like there's nothing not to like about Brett Baty's game.
Yeah, if anyone out there plays in a dynasty fantasy baseball league, I would definitely do what I could to acquire Brett Baty right now. If anyone, I know Mark's in the card game.
No.
If anyone has is looking
my
at them,
cards, those are my cards.
What?
I can't buy them. I'm buying all the Brett Baty cards. No one buy the Brett Baty cards because they're at a fantastic deal right now, and it's just the way that he's hitting. As long as he gets the playing time at the major league level, you're going to be putting him in the rookie of the year conversation for sure.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm not gonna say it. I think a lot of people realized that Brett Baty was this big, like, because he's just a large human. Like, he's 6'3", over 200 pounds, probably pushing like 220, 230 now at this point. He's very strong young man. So it was always like the power that popped off. People always talked about his batting practices, how impressive his exit velocities were, this and that. But what we're seeing in spring training is something that I think was like the absolute key part of his development to becoming like just a good player to potentially being an all-star type player, and that's the hit tool. And it was graded like between 45 and 50 on MLB Pipeline, Fangraphs, Baseball America, all the places. And now the fact that we're just seeing him face major league pitching on a regular basis, waste good breaking balls, contend with velocity, and put the ball in play consistently in advantageous ways, like I think he's really, really good. And we've been on that level forever. So the second he came up last year, as we know, we were so happy when he came up last year. We were so excited. We had to, he's awesome. He does so many things well in the baseball field. The defense is still a work in progress for sure. I think he had an error or two so far in the spring, but that's not, I'm going to be honest, like that's not really at all what I care about. Like he is crushing the ball. He's putting it to all fields. He's doing everything possible. And I'm so confident in what he can do on the baseball field starting now.
Really hard to teach someone how to hit. A lot easier to teach someone how to field. Austin Riley should be the big example of a guy who couldn't field at all, was always a good hitter, and then he started to figure out how to play a little third base, and you're like, oh, one of the better hitters in all of baseball, one of the better players playing third base now for the Atlanta Braves. The thing that used to be a problem is now a strong positive. So yeah, Brett Baty, definitely some defensive improvements for sure, but at the plate, dude's been money. And I guess the third guy to talk about of this trio, Mark Vientos as well, 7 for 23, 2 homers, 2 doubles, 8 strikeouts, but that just kind of seems like the MO for Mark Vientos is he's going to be a big power guy with strikeouts. And that's not anything we haven't seen before. That's kind of how it works. It feels like in baseball a lot of times.
Yeah, for sure. And again, you just mentioned the guy, Austin Riley. Austin Riley was a guy who struck out way too much when he first came up, and then he just stopped doing that. So that's always a possibility. Vientos, though, it's just kind of we're like it's much more in our faces about the player that he is, the player that a lot of people have known he is. Now a lot of people are getting to know him a little bit better. Crazy power when he connects, it goes a very long way. But he's going to swing and miss a lot, and he also kind of just lacks a defensive home. We've seen him mixing in some first base, some third base so far this spring. That's kind of going to be where he lives on the corners. But again, there's something about Vientos that is still kind of making me think he needs more time. Is that he still isn't really tapping into the pull power. Me and you crunched the numbers the other day when we were just hanging out on Discord, that Vientos, even if you looked at what he was doing in the minor leagues last year, he was pulling the ball about league average, just hair less than league average, but he was hitting the ball opposite field way more than league average. And while that's like a 10 minute of hitting, that's like old school baseball, be able to drive the ball the other way, right now, you really want to be able to pull the ball as hard as you can, because that's the shortest distance to get out of the ballpark. Is the best way to get backspin in your hits. That's where you want to hit the baseball. And Vientos has this crazy power, and he's able to get out to the opposite field. Spring training, AAA, it's amazing. But I do doubt, especially seeing the way some high-power prospects like Andrew Vaughn, Spencer Torkelson come up in the last few years, it's much more difficult to do that once you get to the major leagues. You see crazy breaking balls, you see major velocity. So what Vientos doing is super cool and super impressive. We still want to be able to tap into that pull stuff more, maybe strike out a
100%. He's
little
been
bit
playing a
less.
lot of first base too, which is interesting as a guy who came up as third baseman, got a little corner outfield time too last year, playing a lot of first base in spring training. Something to keep an eye out for. I mean, that right-handed bat platoon of the DH is a big, conversation point right now. I think Darren Ruff's playing in his first spring training game as we speak when we're recording this. He seems like the guy who could be taking that spot right now. Vientos is a name. Alvarez is a name that's been thrown around. It's probably going to be someone who wins it out of camp. Just continue playing well and see where it goes. Vientos will be on the major league roster at some point during the season, though, without a doubt. And the power is legit. That's for sure.
Yeah, and again, it's really just amazing to see all of these guys interacting with each other, interacting with the veterans. Everyone seems to be just also again. We didn't even recap the fact that we were there. We haven't really even talked to you guys since that. It's just the cohesiveness of this roster was really apparent, and being able to see these guys do their work in the front field, do the work in the backfield, hang out, walk and talk together, play music, razz each other. Like, that's a beautiful thing as podcasters, and podcasters second, fans first.
I guess this is technically our first episode since we've came back from Port St. Lucie that we're actually recording. The one that we recorded there really threw me off because we just talked about everything. And I feel like those were all the main stories. And now that we have games and stats, I want to talk about that. And to continue on these stats, the two big bats in this lineup, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, not going to be playing in spring training until they're done with the World Baseball Classic right now. But in the 7-8 games that they both played, both been just absolutely tearing the cover off the ball. Pete's got 3 home runs. Lindor's got 2. They both have like their OPS and 20 at bats, over 1,000, which take that for what it is. It's all with a grain of salt, but you're seeing them both get on base. They're both walking, both putting the ball in play. I also saw a fun stat too. I think it was by Danny Vietti, who is a CBS Sports writer, I believe. He talked about the slowest time to get ready in the box. Mets had 4 of the 6 slowest guys last year in baseball. Can you name them?
Canna?
Yes, he's number 1.
Of course,
yep,
Pete.
I think he was number 2.
That's gonna get a little more difficult.
No,
Lindor,
not
over
Lindor.
here. Yeah, I didn't think it was him. I just figured we were talking about him. I feel like it's not Nimmo.
Nimmo is on there.
Not
Nimmo is on there.
Nimmo is
tied
there?
for 5th, and
That's
Jeff was
surprising.
tied for 3rd. But Pete and Canna are a clear 2 seconds above Jeff McNeil, who's tied for 3rd.
Well, Pete does check swing.
So we've seen them
check swing, breath.
adjust to the new game with the pitch clock and everything, just as everyone else is in Major League Baseball. We've seen Pete sprint in, and he still goes through his whole thing before there. He wants to make sure he has time, and he's still playing really well with all these new changes, which you love to see. He's tearing the cover off the ball. Lindor too. Like, their swings just look so good. They look so ready. They're going to look great in the World Baseball Classic. That's for sure too.
I'm like oozing with excitement for Francisco Lindor this year. You guys listen to the interview we did with Carlos Beltran. If you haven't, go back and listen to it now. We've been saying it for many years. This is it's so similar. The arcs these guys' careers are going to have in New York, and seeing the way that Lindor had the first season, then last year everything came together, but even played like a month with a broken finger, and then ended up playing most of the season with basically appendicitis, what it came out to look like being, and he still had his best offensive season since 2018, and he even though that season looked a little bit better output wise, because he scored 130 runs and he hit 38 home runs, which is just a function of the lineup, the place he played in, and just struck out a little bit less. His WRC plus was almost the same, and his barrel rate was almost the same. So we're in a spot last year where Francisco Lindor, on the more predictive stats, not the predictive stats, WRC is not a predictive stat, but in terms of barrel rate and being able to have his plate discipline, looking like some of the best baseball he's ever played in his entire career. And now we're getting rid of the shift. He was shifted heavily last year. Appendix is cool. No finger issues yet, knock on wood. And he just looks so freaking locked in. Projections are hurting him right now because they're really weighting a lot of what happened in 2020 and 2021. So the batting averages in his projection systems right now are in the 240s and 250s. When he hit 270 last year, we're playing a month with a broken finger. If he hits less than 275 this year, I'll be surprised, honestly. And it looks like we're just gearing up for something of an iconic season for him, and I'm incredibly excited to watch.
I keep laughing every time they show his numbers and Pete's numbers from last year, because I know the season ended poorly, it didn't end how we want, but just looking at 25 and 107 from Lindor, 40 and 130 from Pete, it's just that middle of the order in terms of like run production, like this is exactly why they're here. This is why they're getting paid to do what they're doing, driving in runs, hitting home runs, putting guys in situations to get even more runs scored. Like it's one of the, it's going to sound weird because like there's so many good like 3-4s in baseball, but in terms of like producing runs, driving in runs, it's one of the better lineups in all of baseball. We talked about it last year, and to see them swinging as well as they have early has been fantastic. Now to bring it on to the pitching side, we had the most interesting start by far of spring training. Kodai Senga, we actually got to see him pitch in a real game. We saw him, of course, pitch while we were in Port St. Lucie during some inter-squad scrimmages, which was really cool. But we don't get numbers, we don't get stats, we don't get any of that, which would be cool. If the Mets ever want to give that to us, we'll take them. But we got to see him pitch against the Cardinals. First start ever in the U.S. And there was definitely some butterflies for sure. Like he definitely had a little bit of trouble with command in the first inning. In the first inning, I think that's important to say because the second inning was much more clean. But the dude was throwing 98 miles an hour. I think he might have even touched 99. He was pretty much sitting 97. That to me, I saw the first pitch coming at 98 on that Cardinals broadcast. I was like, oh baby, this is real. Let's go.
Yeah, it felt very different to watch him as opposed to like having like looked up his like numbers and like try to scout him because now you kind of saw like, oh, this guy is only cost $15 million. Like, holy crap. And we said this when he got signed in the offseason. We learned about his average fastball velocity from Japan. Like, there's nobody else in the league who makes less than $20 million annually starting pitchers that sit over 96 miles an hour. And he was sitting 97, 98 the other day, touched 99. And that fastball, we didn't have, for some reason, we didn't have movement stats on Kodai Senga. While every other pitcher who pitched that day in both teams had movement stats, like vertical and horizontal movement. It was ridiculous. I don't know how that happened, but we had spin, and spin, we don't know. Spin doesn't mean as much when we don't know anything about movement, but his 2,300 RPMs on that four-seam fastball have been the top 10 percentile of all fastballs in the league last year, which again, that's not perfect because we don't know how like the angle is spinning at, so we don't know if it actually has the hop. It didn't really look like it had the hop you want of a fastball. It's going to miss bats, and his fastball didn't miss bats, but it was freezing hitters. It got 6 called strikes. I remember like watching it. It seemed like caught a lot of hitters off guard because it really just gets on you quickly because it got just really good zip. It was freaking really cool to
we
watch
got to see the Ghost Fork too. I think he threw a disgusting one to Jordan Walker, which welcome to the big leagues. Also, Jordan Walker, he's really good. But I mean, that Ghost Fork he threw was unreal. Like that to me, I was like, oh, that's the pitch. That's the one that everyone's talking about. It makes a lot of sense because it literally disappeared. It was like fastball gone. You can't hit it. It was nuts.
And we saw him kind of do something that we're noticing a lot of Mets pitchers do this spring, which is this is my best off-speed pitch, but he only threw 3 of them. And that swing and miss of Jordan Walker was the only one that actually got whiffed on. So it kind of feels like he was doing that to kind of like get after the kid. He was like, oh, we're both rookies. Let me get you real quick. But what Kodai Senga was doing besides throwing that ghost fork, which is seemingly a pitch he's going to lean on a lot during the actual season, was introduce this sweeper. So we heard when he was coming over that he had a slider and might have had a little bit of a curveball, but we also know that he went to Driveline over the winter this year before coming stateside. And I think he also went with Shintaro Fujinami, the new Japanese pitcher who's on the A's. And the only other pitchers I remember who came over and immediately went to Driveline was the guy, Otani, who was pitching out in Anaheim. And he even wasn't that good year one. But it seems like this pitch is something that's going to be a weapon. Just to remind people about sweepers, it's kind of the new trendy breaking ball in the league. It's a breaking ball that kind of appears out of the hand like a curveball, but it winds up acting more like a slider. And like the funky baseball term is what's called gyro, has gyro spin, which means it's kind of like spin that makes it look different, but we're not going to bore you guys with all that crazy stuff. And really what happens is since it kind of supposed to look like a curveball, but it winds up moving like a slider, it's supposed to just make the hitters like not realize what's going on. And while it does get a lot of whiffs, it kind of is more of a pitch for soft contact. And in this game, Kodai got a lot of soft contact with it. 5 swings, 4 balls in play. Only one of them was only 95 miles an hour, and it was 97. So when you get contact like that, it's not really going to hurt you. And it seems like that was a big deal for this pitch because he has the fastball, he has the ghost fork, which is getting the whiffs. He needed that third weapon that could be like he can get hitters out. And this pitch is not really great against opposite side hitters because, as you can tell, it's like similar to you're not really going to throw that many sliders unless you're David Peterson, have nasty back foot boys. A pitch that's a little bit slower is not going to be as advantageous against lefties, but the ghost fork is because it drops straight down. So this is kind of a great weapon for him against righties just to make things more difficult. And again, we don't have the movement on it, but he got 5 swings, got 1 whiff, only 1 hard hit ball. He needed the third pitch, and it looks like
there were some good signs. Like you saw it had some success too. Like it was a little all over the place, more so again in the first inning. He hung one up and in. Like, this pitch is going to be a work in progress for sure. Like, the two best pitches are definitely that ghost fork and fastball. But as you've mentioned, having a third pitch is huge, especially when those other two pitches look like they can be very, very solid. And at least with the fastball, getting that velo, which is so big. So super, super exciting things coming from Kodai Senga's first start. Can't wait to see his next one. Talking about some other pitchers around the Mets, I think we should address the injury that has happened, unfortunately, with Jose Quintana. Went down with a fracture, a small rib fracture, I believe. There's no timeline just yet. I think he went back to New York for imaging, is what they said.
He did, but if you saw Anthony DeComo's tweet, his flight actually today got canceled. So we were going to have to wait for him to
Okay.
get back and actually get testing on it. And Buck was like, I'm still hoping for good news, but this is definitely going to test the Mets' depth a little bit more early. And we've been saying all offseason, like David Peterson, Tyler Miguel, they're going to have big roles in this team, and now it's just going to happen a little bit sooner than we would have thought. Anyway, Peterson had a quote today. I think someone either Healy or I don't know, one of the guys asked him about Quintana's injury, and he was like, those 5 guys making 30 starts each is highly unlikely. At some point, something's going to happen, and we saw last year. You see it every year. I'm excited to come in and do my work. And we're going to have an interview coming out with David Peterson probably early next week, and you guys are going to hear this being echoed, the exact same sentiment. He's just ready to do anything the team needs him to do. And I mean, hopefully we do get good news on Quintana, because he was brought in here to be a workhorse, and it would really stink if he's not able to to work. And it wasn't oblique. Thank God it wasn't oblique. I think a stress fracture might be better than an oblique, because just let the bone heal. That's okay. That happens. Unless it was, I don't know anything about the sides, but maybe an oblique made the stress fracture. Usually that's a fracture from stress, but I was relieved, not knowing anything medically, that it was not oblique.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's, I don't know. Again, we're not doctors, so I won't necessarily make a call.
There's no timetable, so we hope.
Yeah,
it's
hope
okay.
he's okay. Obviously, we want him to be a part of this rotation. It helps the Mets to have him be a part of this rotation, because the depth gets even bigger and longer, and he eats innings for sure. But to talk about a guy like Peterson, like you mentioned that interview, a lot of good baseball talk in that one. So if you guys are looking for that, I think interviews are going to start pushing out on Friday. I think this Friday we're going to drop William Woods and Dan Vogelback, which will be really cool. Great conversations with both of them. But back to Peterson, he's a guy that we've been talking about. I shouldn't say we've both been talking about just how important he could be to this team, and to see him kind of just get thrown right into it now. I feel confident. I feel so confident. He did so many good things last year that I have all the confidence in the world that David Peterson could be a really good starter in this league, not a guy who just needs to fill in.
No, for sure. We've been on that train again, like forever. And I think that there's a lot. David Peterson's had a couple cool highlights this spring, especially that like jump throw from the pitcher's mound. That's way better than anyone who's ever played in New York, ever doing anything like that. And he's also just been able to mix in the off speed stuff, throw his fastball. It looked like he had a little more velocity in his first start. And there was something he did in his last start before he got hit in the comeback around his foot, and people scared people, but I think he is okay now. That really just echoes home exactly the kind of player he is, exactly kind of player he wants to be, and a lot of what you guys will hear in that interview. And he just came out there that game on Saturday against the Marlins, and he dropped 7 curveballs in 2 innings. David Peterson, his entire career in the major leagues, only thrown more than 7 curveballs twice, and they both happened last summer. One game in May, one game in June. And then you kind of connect some dots, some context clues. You've heard Tyler McGill talk about working with Max Scherzer, trying to do curveball stuff. You've heard Max and Justin be like, yeah, we want to really instill our wisdom to all these guys. And those guys have their curveballs as kind of like show me pitches, and they use them effectively in that way. You kind of pick up those tricks when you're one of the best pitchers of a generation. You pitch in the league for 20 years, where I can drop this curveball on you for a strike and you won't even know it's coming. And Peterson very clearly is doing a lot of work to make this pitch usable for him. And there was like an amazing sequence that just happened in the 5th inning of this random spring training game that is probably lost on some. But this is one thing I was like, oh my God.
This is why you come to the Mets'd podcast for this right here.
Yeah. So 2 outs, nobody on, Nick Fortes at the plate. So Met killers. You got to be careful. You got to be careful with Nick Fortes. Starting the at-bat, 2 out, nobody on. Respect Nick Fortes. David Peterson tries to drop a curveball on him. This pitch completely sailed through the other's batter's box. It was an absolute, it was nothing. It looked, I don't even know. It was it was like Mitchell Robinson shooting a 3 for all my Knicks fans out there. It wasn't even close. It was going to be nowhere. It's like RJ Barrett shooting a 3 when he has no legs. And at 1-0 now, David Peterson comes back to the set, and he drops the same exact curveball on Nick Fortes and drops a dime right at his knees on the inner half. And it was like, that right there is like, okay, I'm working on something. It didn't work, and I'm going to try it again. And it did work. And he actually ended up getting squeezed on the call. He definitely caught knees on it, but the ump called to the ball, probably because the first pitch was so bad. But that persistence and that like commitment to like doing something I want to do, That's what spring training is all about. And that's kind of what David Peterson's all about too. And seeing that, understanding that, watching that, it makes me
Yeah,
really
super
excited about it.
excited to see what he can do this year. He had some big starts for us last year. He was really important to the team's success. Like you kind of forget because you have big names on that roster. But David Peterson could be like, I mean, I think we did this video right before we joined the Mets last year about how we thought Tyler McGill was going to be like an X factor for the team. David Peterson, I think, is joining that too. Like he could be a huge part of this team, and he should be. He should be. He's really good.
And we should kind of give some flowers to McGill because he
Oh
has
yeah,
made some appearances in the spring. He looks healthy. The fastball's popping. Like he was at X Factor last year
yeah.
until he got injured, and that gave Peterson the opportunity. And if like he was pitching great until he went down. One of his last starts was like his share of
Yeah.
the combined no hitter, where he threw 5 2/3 against an incredible Phillies lineup and gave up no hits. So really good. Tyler McGill still has an opportunity. Shut down Nationals opening day last year from the grace of guy just came out of nowhere. So the fact that we have both these guys and they're both actively trying to get better, you're going to hear from Tyler McGill too, probably next week, maybe the week after. Maybe we put those interviews together. Who knows? Just put the two Mets young bucks together. We got a lot of good things going on right now. When everyone's been talking about the fact the Mets haven't really been able to develop a pitcher in a little while now since that faithful group from 5 or 7 years ago, which feels crazy. These are two guys who are going to be useful, going to be important, and again, health withstanding, could be incredibly valuable pieces to this
100%.
team.
And I mean, even like on the bullpen side, we've had some really good arms come through. We have a Drew Smith interview coming for you guys as well at some point. We talked to so many players. You're going to be hearing us talking and, pumping up these interviews for a while because that's what we did in spring training. We interviewed players. One guy we didn't interview, though, that I wish we did actually, now that I thought about it, BMDO, Bryce Montes de Oca. Dude's unreal. Me and you, I remember specifically, I think was this before we went to Port St. Lucie or after we went to Port St. Lucie? This was the Knicks game that we went to, right? We're sitting at Jack Dempsey's
Yeah,
and we're having a drink at the bar. And we went into like a 10-minute conversation about how good Bryce Montes de Oca is and how important he could be to this team and how the Mets kind of just relatively pulled him out of thin air and he just throws 100. He's got nasty stuff. He's an electric factor. He's a sick arm to have as like not your main guy. He can just come in and pitch in games when it's like 8-0 and be disgusting.
it's when you're getting the pitching ninja treatment like in March, like you're really doing something right. And Bryce Montes de Oca throws 100 miles an hour, can get up to 102, and it got 20 inches of
Yeah.
break sometimes. It's ridiculous. Like he's like if Dustin May put on 50 pounds and he's out there
6
just
inches.
throwing
Yeah.
bullets. It's incredible. I think Dustin May's pretty tall. He's sneaky. He's a string
look him
bean,
up.
but he's got some sneaky height. But Montes de Oca, man, this is incredible.
Justin May's
What
6'6".
was that gasp? I told you he's really
Wow,
big.
okay.
Why do you think he throws 100
I
miles
just
an
thought he was a
hour?
freak.
Montes de Oca though is 6'7", 270 though. So there's no two ways about it here. But Montes de Oca comes from Missouri, which has been lauded as one of the best pitching laboratories in
Max
all of college
Scherzer.
baseball and all of the SEC. Yeah, Max Scherzer alma mater. He's got this freaking cutter and this sinker, and they're witchcraft voodoo. And you just kind of want a piece of that. He's going to have options. He's going to be up and down. He's going to be able to get ground balls because those are his two primary pitches too. It's like we're going to probably see some crazy stuff this year from Bryce Montes de Oca. He's going to be a guy who makes it into this bullpen, and I'm really excited. And another sidebar, some people in the Mets organization think he looks like our producer Vito. I don't necessarily see it
at
but
all.
it's
I'm
like
sorry, Vito.
it's like large guys with long hair, so I kind of get it.
I mean,
His headshot actually, in person, I didn't think he looked like him at all. But I'm looking at his headshot right
too.
now, and I think he actually does
Baseball
look like him.
Reference is actually leading me to believe that you guys could be like cousins.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not brothers, but cousins.
Vito Montes de Oca.
There
Yeah,
he
I
is.
think it's really just the eyebrows. I think the eyebrows and the prominent brow situation is what made
Yeah.
a specific coworker who this is her second straight time getting acknowledged on this show for things having to do with me. But yes, she says she out of nowhere today just says you look like Bryce Montes de Oca.
Vito, maybe since you're the editor of this, you could put a picture of him right next to your face, and the viewers at home can decide whether or not you look like Bryce Montes de Oca. What do you think about that?
Okay, so you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna smile. And then there'll be a little ding right there. You'll just heard a ding and a freeze with that.
Exactly. Bryce Montes de Oca talk. That's what you get on the Mets'd podcast. We love talking about relievers. I got to give James 30 seconds. Talk about Jeff Brigham. Go.
All right, Jeff Brigham, we're seeing some things this spring that I think are useful. He's throwing that slider and is moving a lot. The fastball, it has crept up in his 3 outings that he's pitched so far. He did get it to 95 the last start. If that thing is 97 in June, we have a weapon, Mets fans. Just please hang on tight with me and Jeff Brigham because we're going to the promised land together.
Dude, we have to come up with a name. It's going to be like a Brigham segment that we just like once every episode for like 30 seconds. You just get to talk about Jeff Brigham. Even if he didn't even pitch, he could be in the minors. You can just talk about him for a little bit.
He came in the 4th inning. He was like the 3rd pitcher off the bench in spring training opening day, and we just got in our voodoo buckets and we're tired from a long, draining day. And I was like, "Oh, guys, hold on, let me watch Brigham."
We literally stopped.
I was watching him like through the fence in the outfield. I was like, "We can't go anywhere. I know we want to eat, but we can't eat right now. I have to watch Jeff Brigham." And we're checking it out every single day. The velocity's ticking up. He had the bicep problem last year. If we get to where we want to get to, Bryce Montesioca, Jeff Brigham, Zach Green's look pretty good. His fastball's very deceptive. All the reports were true. It doesn't come in hard, but you just feel like the hitters can't see it. He hides it incredibly well. And he's also got the good slider rocking. So a lot of what we've seen, I've seen our boy William Woods got a strikeout tonight, faced 2 batters. We got some stuff going on here with this bullpen.
We're
it's
cooking
really
a little
fun.
bit. We're cooking a little bit. And it's going to be interesting, too, because now with the World Baseball Classic starting, there's a lot of players that have left the Mets for spring training right now. I don't know if they have the most, or they're like at least top 5 most players leaving the organization during spring training to go play in the World Baseball Classic.
I think it's 11. I heard on the radio the other day listening to the Sunday game with Howie and Keith Rad, new friend, and Pat McCarthy was on the call as well. So 2 new friends. That the Cardinals, I believe, have 17 players in the organization in WBC.
That's
it's
insane.
ridiculous.
And if Team Germany made it, Brendan Donovan probably would have been playing too. You could add in another one.
And the Mets have 11, which is a lot, but that 17 is ridiculous. That's like 70% of the major league roster.
I'm trying to count all the players. I'm like, my goodness. Yeah, that is a ton of the roster.
Contreras, Goldschmidt, Arenado,
Edman, Tyler O'Neill.
Is Newt. Tyler O'Neill's
he's on Team Canada. He's Canadian.
Oh, I forgot that. Is Yepes?
I don't know if he's playing. I don't think he is. You have Wainwright. You have Miles Michaelis. Giovanni Gallegos. Now we're turning into a Cardinals podcast here, but we're just trying to see if we can name all the players.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Ryan Helsley for Team USA.
Organization. We just got 10. Less than
Ivan Herrera's there. That's 11.
I was going to name.
I don't know if I can go much longer than this.
11's a good spot. 11's a good spot. I don't want to go to their minor leagues.
But yeah, I mean, it's impressive.
But still a lot.
And if you guys have been part of the Messed Up podcast for a while, the World Baseball Classic's a little bit of a meme here. A little bit, because I live for the World Baseball Classic. Right now, we're recording on Tuesday night, 8 o'clock in 3 hours. We're going to see first pitch between the Kingdom of the Netherlands and Cuba, which is something that I think like maybe 8-year-old Mark would have never imagined to say is I'm going to watch the Netherlands and Cuba play baseball against each other. But the World Baseball Classic is starting. When you guys listen to this, I think Chinese Taipei and Panama might be playing if you're catching it early enough in the morning. I'm unbelievably excited for the World Baseball Classic. I love this event. I'm going to be in Miami for the entirety of it as soon as that pool starts. So if any of you guys are down there and you see me, come say what's up. I'd love to say hi. James didn't want to join. He's a busy man. He's a busy man. Capitalist James now, you know.
I'm just tired. I'm just so tired. I'll need to go back to Florida twice in a month. I can't do that. You're going 3 times in 2 months.
I was about to say, spending like almost a month in Florida for you like feels very not James Shiano.
It's very not James. It's not friendly to the gluten free. It's not friendly to some other habits that I have, and it's just not. It's not a great place to be.
No, but it's going to be really exciting. I'm super pumped. I don't necessarily know. Should we want to do like a World Baseball Classic prediction? I'll tell you. Want to go through pools and we'll say who we think is going to make it through. You pick the top 2 teams.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun, briefly. A quick prediction. So, Pool A, you have Chinese Taipei, Cuba, Italy, Netherlands, and Panama. If you want any fun facts about these teams, you want to know something, James, just let me know. I got it for you.
Give me the best player in each team.
Best player on Chinese Taipei is probably Yu Chang, but I want to shout out Li Lin. He's a guy who plays in the NPB, and I think he played in the KBO a little bit, mostly in the Chinese Baseball League. He's a really good player, but Yu Chang is a major leaguer. You know him, Zhu Wei Lin, former Met as well. But I would say that's their best player.
Okay, now give me one player from each team. You don't have to expand that much. But give me one player in each team.
Cuba, Luis Robert. Guys that you don't know that you should keep an eye out though for is going to be on the pitching side. There are 2 really, really good relievers. Raidiel Martinez is one of them. He throws like 100. Absolutely disgusting. They have a lefty. I forgot his name. I didn't write it down. but they have two relievers to keep an eye out for. Italy, Vinny Pasquantino. You guys have heard about him. He plays for the Royals. I think this is going to be a little bit of the Vinny Pasquantino coming out party for maybe the more general baseball world because he's stuck in Kansas City where they stink, but that dude is a hitter. He's kind of like, it's like a really lazy comp, I think, but he's a little bit of like a young Freddie Freeman in the way that he hits. Just kind of can hit the ball to all fields, doesn't strike out, gets on base.
And doesn't have the crazy power that a lot of other first basemen have.
In terms of Netherlands, the best player on that team is going to be Xander Bogaerts. They have Major League Baseball players. It's Aruba, Curacao, and people from the Netherlands. So that'll be interesting. Kenley Jansen joins if they make it to the next round. Panama, little weak, but they do have Jose Ramos, who is a Dodgers prospect. I think you guys should keep an eye out for him. He's at least to me the most exciting player on that roster. And pitching wise, they do have a Met, Humberto Mejia. He's in the minors for the Mets.
Can I ask a question about the World Baseball Classic? I'm seeing there's 4 groups of 5 teams each. Who moves on to the next round?
Yeah, I mean, like the top 2 teams make it. So who are your top 2 from this? With that knowledge I just gave you.
Cuba and the Netherlands.
Okay. Listen, I think those are the 2 favorites. I'm going Netherlands, Italy, just to be a good Italian. Got to see the boys and the Azzurri go through. But I'm gonna pick Italy to be the second place team.
I feel like Azzurri is really reserved for
sure, for sure. Soccer fans are probably cringing out there. If there are any that listen to this, it's probably not a big crossover. Venn diagram really doesn't mix there. Pool B, we have Australia, China, Czech Republic, Japan, and Korea. This one's pretty straightforward. I think this is probably the most straightforward group of them all. It's going to be in Japan and Korea. I'm not going to let you pick anybody else. I don't think you would either. Both of those teams are really good.
I like that Australia is here because they have their own baseball league. That's probably one of the more successful on planet Earth relatively to all the as much baseball is played. And they're just all those guys are kind of just
they are just a little small.
They did. Yeah, they had a funny TikTok one around the other day. It was I think actually it was the Czech team. It was what's your day job? It was teacher, accountant. It was now we're playing baseball for the month.
It's really cool, especially because the Czech Republic in their qualifiers got smacked by Spain. I think they lost 19-1 and then beat them in the finals, which is really cool. That's an interesting one for you there. But I'll give you some names here. Japan, Shohei Ohtani, duh. But Munetaka Murakami, that's the guy you got to keep an eye out for. Broke the record for MPB home runs last year. That's the Japanese Professional Baseball League. He's a stud. He's sick.
Yeah, and he's a guy who's going to come stateside in a few years and looks like he's going to go crazy. If you guys want to just look him up on Twitter today, he hit a wicked home run off of Yu Darvish in live BP, put it to the moon. He's one of those short compact power hitters. He kind of looks like Nolan Gorman if Nolan Gorman was good, just to keep on the Cardinal stuff. And he just he's 6'1", just completely yoked out. No one looks like him in the whole country of Japan. I don't know where he came from, but
and Roki Sasaki on the pitching side. He is the young pitching phenom that will be coming over. Throws 100 and has a devastating splitter. He's a freak. Everyone will know these names when the tournament's done because Japan might win the entire thing. They're really good. For Korea, Tommy Edman's the big name that you will know, but you got to keep an eye out for Lee Jung-hoo, who won the KBO MVP. He's just straight up one of the best all-around hitters in this entire tournament. He's really, really good.
And I think it came out last week that he's set to post.
Yes, he is. So keep an eye out for him. He's going to be coming stateside eventually. Kwang Young Kim on the pitching side, a former major leaguer that you guys know. For Australia, not a lot. Their only guy who's played in the majors is Aaron Whitefield. And just like me and James, you probably don't know who that guy is. Sorry, Australia. You're going to get smoked probably every game. China does not really have anybody. Chinese baseball is developing. They're learning. But I want to give a shout out to Alan Zhang Carter. He is a college player who went undrafted that the Angels just signed this winter. So it's going to be a big moment for Alan Zhang Carter. He's in the Angels organization. He came out of a small D2, D3 school in college, which is really cool. Czech Republic, I actually do have names for you, which is really funny. I have Marek Chlup. That's CHLUP. Keep an eye out for him. He plays at North Greenville University. This dude is a ball player. He hits absolute nukes. I'm really excited to see him because it could really help his draft stock. On the pitching side, 2 really young guys, Michael Kovala and Boris Vasurka. They both throw in the mid-90s. Vasurka, Boris, he can touch 100, and he's on a major league, or not a major league, he's on a minor league roster. I don't know what team, but keep an eye out for them. We know what that one's going to look like. Now for the fun pools, for the ones that you guys are probably more excited for. Pool C, got the U.S., Mexico, Colombia, Canada, Great Britain. Who you got coming out of this one? I think it's a little closer.
Definitely the U.S. I really sneaky like Mexico's roster. I was looking at it the other day. They have a good blend of people. I think they're going to be the team that kind of that kind of takes a step forward this year and kind of lets them know. A lot more Mexican players have been getting to the major leagues last few years, led by Jose Urquidy, Julio Urias. I think that it's a hitter. I can't remember right now. Is Yepes?
No, Yepes is not. No, they're
No.
I mean, Randy Arozarena is playing for Team Mexico because he's not playing for Team Cuba. He's playing for Team
Oh, that's a
Mexico. I
good one.
think either his mother or father are Mexican. They have a lot. Verdugo's there. Alec Thomas. You have Jaron Duran as well around the infield. You have some really good players.
Taiwan's on the team. Old
Taiwan. They have
friend.
one of the better pitching staffs, honestly, in the entire thing. Not a lot of great pitching in this tournament.
It's actually, I'm looking at it right now. They have a pretty deep, like a shockingly deep pitching staff. Sandoval, Urias, Urquidy, Taiwan. Like that's as far as starters go. With Javier Assad, kind of a swingman. Cesa, Gallegos. Ali Perez is pitching.
If they make it to the next round, I think he has the ability to play.
Oh, this is good. Rowdy Teles. This is good. Rowdy, Jonathan Aranda, Rays prospect, Joey Meneses, Joey Baseball, Isaac Paredes, Luis Urias, even Alan Trejo can swing it a little bit. This seems kind of decent. Alec Thomas, Jaron Duran, got athletic.
Oh yeah, 100%. So I mean, for me, I got U.S. and Mexico moving on. Canada is, I feel like a little overhyped right now. They have Freddie Freeman and Cal Quantrill and Tyler O'Neill, but there's kind of not like that big star power. But keep an eye out for Edward Julien, the Twins prospect who is torching spring training, and he's probably going to play second base every day for them.
He's a good ball player. Matt Brash too is on.
Oh, he is. I didn't know that.
Don't forget Matt Brash. Probably the craziest slider.
Also, keep an eye out for Harry Ford on Team Great Britain. Young catching prospect. He is by far their best hitter. He's pretty sick. And Vance Worley's playing on Team Great Britain.
Oh, I'm looking still in Canada. Bo Naylor, exciting Guardians prospect.
Yeah, so Canada's like a little unproven. I think Mexico's a little bit more of a safer pick, but should be a good pool out in Arizona. For the final pool, the one I'll be at: Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Israel, and Nicaragua. And I'm sorry, Israel and Nicaragua, you're not making it through because you're talking about three of the best playing baseball countries in the entire world in one bracket or one pool. It's the group of death essentially. One of them's not making it through the next round, which is crazy. All these teams are loaded. Who do you like out of this one?
I mean, I really like the captain of Team Puerto Rico, Francisco Lindor, but it seems like just looking at their rosters, it's going to be between Puerto Rico and Venezuela. And I think Venezuela's roster is a little bit better, but Puerto Rico's vibes are a little bit better.
Elite vibes in Puerto Rico.
Dominican Republic unbelievable vibes in that team. Dominican Republic is gonna, I think, do some pretty. They have probably the best lineup that's ever going to be assembled in the baseball game that we're ever going to see in our lives.
Team USA's.
Otherwise, things can be a dogfight.
Team USA's lineup is pretty insane.
Dude, Dominican Republic lineup is I think.
Well, they lost Vlad Jr. That does hurt a little bit.
They did lose Vlad. Actually, losing Vlad Jr. does hurt because they also don't really have an obvious guy to play first base now. I'm assuming it's going to be Devers that plays there.
Should be.
And then you stick Machado over third. Yeah, but I think that's what's going to happen. But Dominican Republic, you just can tell how sick they are because everyone's just a shortstop. Whole team is all a bunch of shortstops.
or Jeremy Pena won't make the starting lineup. Think about that.
Or Wander.
It's nuts. They're absolutely loaded. For me, I was going Dominican and Venezuela too, as much as I would love to really rep the Mets because there's a couple of them on Puerto Rico. It's tough. There's going to be the group of death. I can't wait to see these games. It should be really fun. World Baseball Classic, like we said, starts. Well, it's already started when you guys are listening to this. It's happening the night that we're recording this. Can't wait to watch Netherlands versus Cuba at 11 o'clock out in Taiwan.
Before we close out, who's your prediction? Who over who in the finals?
I went with, it's going to be a video that goes up on my YouTube channel, but I went USA versus Dominican Republic in the finals, and I had Team USA. It's boring, it's chalk, I get it, but like there seems to be a clear tier of the three best teams. It's USA, Dominican, and Japan. There were three of the four teams in my semifinals, and go Team USA. I'm going to be a homer. Let's go America.
Yeah, I'm going USA over Japan.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
Japan always just gets their way to the finals of this.
They take this tournament last time they didn't, but I think than anybody. The World Baseball Classic is super important. It's like a huge pride thing. A lot of these guys like play to get to the Japanese national team, where Team USA is just starting to kind of get those big names like Trout and Mookie Betts on the team.
And as on the hitting side too, the pitching side, Japan, Roki Sasaki and Shohei Ohtani might actually be two of the four best pitchers in this entire thing. So I think it's huge.
And then you got Yu Darvish, who's pretty good too. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's ridiculous. Dominican Republic does have great pitching too, because they're gonna have Sandy Alcantara and Luis Garcia and Christian Javier running the top three there, but not many other stars behind them. Their bullpen's gonna be so amazing. I'm looking at Camilo Doval, Daniel Dos Santos, Hector Neris,
Rafael Montero.
These guys are the crazy stuff. And Brian Abreu, Diego Castillo. Genesis Cabrera, lefty, throws 96. Oh
You
my
know, they
god,
got some heat. And
it's
honestly,
gonna be so
that's
sick.
when the heat
Can't wait to
that's when the
watch
heat gets
this.
turned up, when the relievers get in. I'll never forget Edwin Diaz in the World Baseball Classic in LA, Team Puerto Rico versus the Netherlands versus Vladimir Valentin, who I can't wait to see swing the bat tonight because he only tries to hit nukes. He doesn't care about anything else. But when Edwin Diaz and him went head to head, Diaz threw one up and in. Valentin said, "Come get me." And then Diaz threw 3 fastballs right by him. It's an electric moment. If you haven't checked it out, go look it up on YouTube. I think that's enough of the World Baseball Classic talk, though. I think that's also enough of this episode. We're 45 minutes in. We got to talk about baseball games. We got to talk about stats. We got to talk about Jeff Brigham and relievers. I'm so excited that baseball is back. See, I still snuck it in, James. I snuck it in at the end of the episode. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching, whatever you're doing. We do appreciate it. Make sure you follow us on our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. If you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, drop us a rating, review, download, and subscribe. Follow James on Twitter at
James_Shiano.
and follow me at Giraffe Mark with a C. Thank you guys for enjoying the podcast, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Mets'd Up. Peace.